What's up, everybody? We are back. John Delarose here, the leading Hispanic voice in science fiction. A lot of behavior online that I see that is a issue for the people who are doing it more than anything else, because uh, it's a habit in which a lot of fandom gets into when they're I would say overly passionate about things that don't matter. And it's gamma male behavior because it's a bunch of middle-aged men who are getting together to gossip and to try to give themselves a sense of self-importance for their online endeavors, which most of it's not important whatsoever. Most of it has zero impact. A lot of it, I was talking about in my video about Comicsgate harassing Donnie Cates the other day. What's it matter that you are going online to tell some guy who writes some fan fiction for Venom and Thor or whatever, a property that somebody else created 50 years ago? You're going online and telling him that he's a bad person because he doesn't respect you as a customer, etc. He doesn't know you from Adam. He doesn't know whether you bought his books or not. Probably doesn't care whether you bought his books or not. It's somebody who is just eking out a living writing fan fiction at the end of the day. And to ascribe yourself importance as a person who's spending hours and hours doing that is absurd. And it comes to the gamma male. So I'm going to go over the gamma male traits and what the definition is. This is coming from stevejabba.com from a while back. Gammas are basically it's a sociosexual reject, meaning that women find them repulsive. They're usually very, very intelligent people. I'll get that off the bat right away. Unsuccessful with women. They have a quick on-off switch where either they have a pathological hatred of women, which we see quite often whenever, especially when there's a woman who is involved in these comic book matters. I mean, they just harp on that forever. Or they put a woman on a pedestal. And a lot of the guys you see doing this online actually put these cartoon character women on pedestals. So they actually glorify these drawings of women rather than actual women themselves. And that's because they are so far detached from reality that there's really no reason for them to even glorify any real woman. But you see this happen all the time. You see the pictures by J. Scott Campbell and them going off on like their idol worship of that, or you see like Brie Larson. They just get this like obscene anger towards her as just an actress. Like, who is she? Like, why do you care? She doesn't impact your life whatsoever. If you don't like her movie, just don't go see it, right? But they assign themselves self-importance that, really they're the only people who see it, the evil of Brie Larson or whatever, or the beauty of this drawing of some superhero girl. That is they just oscillate right between the two, and it's such an extreme emotional reaction because the men are acting like women and acting emotionally and lashing out. And so Comicsgate actually thrived around the gamma male mentality, and its leaders are gamma males. You can tell who gamma males are because they're always fundamentally dishonest, right? So they'll go out, they'll say something that like sounds really good, but it really doesn't sound. It's really not true. They'll make their self-importance something totally, like they're the biggest thing in the whole world. And you can see this big time in everything Ethan Van Sciver does with just like, he's making a robot frog book that, 5,000 people are reading. Whoop-de-doo, right? Not a big deal in the scheme of things. My steampunk novels have sold 25,000. So I've got 5 times the readers of my steampunk books than him. It's not, I don't have a big YouTube audience, but whatever. I mean, none of this stuff's important at the end of the day, right? So they create this reality bubble around themselves where they really are the secret king of everything. And Ethan does this very, very overtly by calling himself Caesar. He straight up calls himself the king. He calls himself a monarch of Rome in this like LARPing mentality where it's really just like people are supposed to be here just enjoying comic books. If you look at what a lot of the people originally said about Comicsgate, it was, hey, we just want to be able to read comic books. We don't want to be harassed for politics. We just want to do our thing. And that's what a lot of us stood for back in the day. And once it got co-opted by the Gammas, the former mainstream industry Gammas like Ethan, like Mike Miller, like Doug Tenable, like all of them. I mean, they are all Gamma males personified. It became something else entirely. So that's how you can identify things. So you've got a gamma males online spending their entire day giving themselves self-importance by trying to make people who actually have a little bit more social importance, not much. I mean, Donny Cates doesn't have a ton of social importance, but he does have followers. Make it about them so that they are the story and that it revolves around them. And also, their attempts are to try to take productive people who are actually doing productive things, typically deltas in the scale of things, which are the productive worker bees of society, or betas. Because let's be honest here. There's no alphas who are going around making comic books. It's just not happening. They wouldn't spend their time doing that in general. But there's deltas and betas, and it doesn't mean that somebody doesn't have self-worth or anything like that because of one of their things. It's like the article says, and like I said, gamma males are typically highly intelligent. They have an intelligence above the scale of normal. This is just a social barometer, not a barometer of any other sort of value. But that intelligence often leads to somebody getting frustrated. And especially when they're not respected for their intelligence, they get frustrated online, and so they start lashing out. I got about 50 comments on one of my videos about how wrong I am, about how I got concerned comments. I posted on my blog earlier. If you go to delarose.com, people were going, "Hey, how's your business going? Not so good." It's like they have any clue how my business is going or how my life's going. They're assigning importance to themselves by snidely attacking me. And you can see that in the way that they do things. I mean, obviously, how's business going these days with some emoji laughing is a question that's meant to gotcha me, trying to say, I'm better than you because your business is failing or something like that. My business is not failing. I'm doing great and things are fantastic over here for those who are interested. And the family's doing fantastic. So very, very happy. Johnny boy, your metrics aren't looking good was another one. I don't know what metrics this person's talking about. They talk in vague accusations always, because what they want you to do is reply and start arguing. And when you start arguing, they'll move the goalpost to something else. This is what the gamma male does. They don't actually care about the argument itself. I had one online earlier who, when I posted my blog and talked about the harassment I've endured and others have endured and the death threats I've endured, posted a picture of himself like in a helicopter or whatever, saying, I was in actual combat or whatever. And as if that mattered to the situation whatsoever. His combat experience doesn't have anything to do with the death threats that I've received from these people, for example. But he kept doubling down, kept pushing on that. And I wanted to post it as an example for this video because I saw the gamma male tendency immediately, but it's in a private Facebook group, so I decided not to do that, and I just blocked the fellow instead. You can never argue with the gamma male because they'll just keep going. It's just about keeping going, keeping that argument going, keeping the fight going, because it gets them a little dopamine hit. And if they get a like from it in a public space from somebody else, that gives them another dopamine hit. It makes them feel important. It makes them feel like they accomplished something because they are literally miserable because they're spending their time accomplishing nothing and having people avoid them because nobody wants to be around them. All right. So how else do you spot gamma males? I mean, you can see it online pretty easily. Somebody snipily commenting on people, somebody in never stopping. Somebody wall of texting people is pretty good. They like to write these essays to you as if you have time to read them. And they've got several sentences, and it's like a comment on a 5-minute video, and they probably spent half an hour writing it. It's like nobody's got time to read that. But you see that pretty easily. And of course, you see them attacking women. The very same guy who was pulling that, minimizing my death threats just to argue with me, made another post, which was a really long post about the editor at Valiant Comics, Heather Antos. And he was, and it was just a rambling thing like, you did this to customers, you did this, your industry's failing. She's not in the group where he posted this. He is not communicating with her whatsoever. and she would never communicate with them whatsoever. So it just was a pointless rant about a woman. Like it's that 0 to 60 hatred of women or pedestal idolizing women. Like I said, and it's because you just can't get that kind of attention from women in real life. Now, those of us who can just talk to women in real life and have a normal conversation with a woman don't really relate to this sort of thing. But this is kind of what they do. So it's easy to slip into gamma territory. So I want to mention that like this is not an all or nothing thing. People can react differently in different social situations and act like different people and be a different part of the hierarchy depending on social situations. It's not a static thing you can't change. I definitely have done gamma things in the past. And I believe that, when I was kind of involved with this group, I was acting like that quite a bit because I got swept up in the social significance of what was going on online sometimes and would, leave some comments to comic creators and do these same things. And that's how I can recognize the patterns these days. I discovered what I was doing in arguing with random people. I'll talk about one of which was it was John Layman. And John Layman had some problems with people coming after him. One of my buddies actually kind of confronted him at a convention and videoed it. And people made mistakes at the time. We're not here to demonize anybody, but Layman really got upset and lashed out at people and blocked a lot of people. And I was one of them because I left a comment about something snide at him, and I saw that I did that. But what happened is I just kind of stopped that behavior. And when people see that you stop that behavior, they tend to be nicer to you because nobody wants to be around that gamma behavior. So I just started talking to the guy as if he were a human being. And, I like the guy's comics. He does a really good job writing. I don't really care about his, whatever posts. And then I can go on with my life. If he wants to post something politically that I disagree with, that's his right. And it doesn't bother me. It doesn't impact my life any that he posts something. It's not changing my mind. It's not changing anybody else's mind. So let him express himself. It's his feed, right? And so once you kind of learn that that's the way that things can go, you can identify your own behavior and stop yourself from engaging in that behavior to begin with. So one is obviously just the reaction to women. If you want to idolize a woman or get too caught up and obsessed with something or a woman, that is an unhealthy behavior no matter how you look at it. And so you can stop yourself, nip yourself in the bud right there and just think about something else. The Bible warns about it. This is a lustful thoughts situation, right? And getting into those fantasies where you think that a woman will pay attention to you more or whatnot, if she only knew that you were a secretly intelligent, wonderful person. When you start finding yourself going into those spirals, just stop yourself and think about something else. Go do something else. Go take a walk. Go to the gym. If you're lifting weights, you're not going to sit there and fantasize about these situations with women. Same with the angry thing. So say you're angry with some woman online, and because you think she should be giving you attention, or she's giving wrong attention to the wrong people or something like that. Just go out, lift weights, do something else, because that's the only way to kind of stop that. And you got to train yourself because everything is habits. It's 21 days, right? If you do something for 21 days, it becomes a habit. If you're out there online getting mad at women 21 days in a row, it's a habit for you and you need to stop it. So go lift weights 21 days in a row. Every time you start thinking about that, be like, you know what? I need to go lift weights. I need to go outside and take a walk. Every single time, stop whatever you're doing and just make it happen. You're in quarantine right now, so you can do that. The other thing is just don't argue with people. When you're on the internet, it does no good. You're never going to convince anybody else, especially in a public space. Your entire point of arguing in a public space with somebody is that you're grandstanding, because when you tell somebody they're some piece of shit or whatever on a public space, they're not gonna just be like, oh, you know what, you're right. I'm sorry. Never gonna happen. A lot of people don't do that. So, and they'll just double down every single time. So if you find yourself getting into that space where you just want to argue with somebody's post or argue with somebody's video or argue on somebody's comments, argue on somebody's thread, just don't. Go do something else again. it's pretty easy to stop that behavior. You stop those two things. You stop the rampant, uh, I would say, fantasization of women in a negative or positive way, and you stop just arguing with people and doing your own thing, you'll find that everything you do is more satisfying, not only to people around you who are going to react to you better, but to yourself, because you're going to find yourself engaging in productive things, in just different things. You'll move yourself up that sliding social scale to delta or beta or even alpha in some situations, because you are doing something, and people like productivity, people like positivity, people like just people who are accomplishing things by nature. If you look at what social media is, it is people projecting a false sense of accomplishment to others in general. It is all grandstanding. I saw an author. He's a New York Times bestseller, much bigger than I am. His name's Ted Decker, and he speaks at conferences all around the country. Huge deal. He's the real deal. And he said he doesn't even go on social media whatsoever, because social media is all about three things and nothing else. It's about attacking, which is the gamma male defense mechanism, which I told you about already. Defending, which is the response game where the gamma males keep going and going and going, or promoting something, and that's it. So there's no real discussion that could be had there. Don't delude yourself into thinking that you've got some brilliant things to say on Twitter in 180 characters or whatever their character limit is these days. You don't. It doesn't matter. So social media can be fun. You can connect with people. But you know what? I mean, if you want to have real intelligent discussions about things, do it over the phone, in person, do it in private, because it just doesn't exist otherwise. It's all a fantasy of self-importance for you when you're doing it on a public grandstanding situation. So that's the best ways to get rid of it. You just get rid of that inclination to argue with people. When you see yourself starting to argue and see yourself starting to, and you can look at the tips on this. Like, there's a few telling signs of what you're doing. If you type the words "well, actually," I mean, that's something that gets made fun of a lot. But it always happens. You say one thing. Sorry about that. You say one thing, and somebody comes on and goes, "Well, actually," or demand proof is another one, which is going, you need a citation required. When people are doing that, they're trying to instigate that fight cycle. So you're saying, when you go on a thread and restate what somebody else said, but differently to make it look worse than what they actually said, because somebody came on my thread the other day saying Donny Cates calls everybody Nazis or whatever, and he does it on Twitter. And I went through, and I saw no posts by him calling anybody by name a Nazi. Now, there was one reference where he was talking about Nazi LARPers or whatever in a comment to somebody else, which had nothing to do with anything else, was not calling anybody any names or anything like that. But that's the only time he ever uttered that word. So people twisted a lot of his words into saying that he was saying that in order to rile up against him, for example. And that was the gamma male sort of anger outrage, so they could get together as a team, get like buttons because they'll hit like buttons for each other and get those dopamine hits because they need that social interaction. So you're saying, or so what you're trying to say is, or trying to reframe somebody else's actual words like that, is a big time gamma male tell. Anytime you find yourself typing those words, stop. So those are basically the easy ways to stop things. And I say it's easy, but it's a little harder. It takes some training. It takes some self-awareness, because you're going to have to want to improve yourself. I can't help you on this. But I definitely saw this in myself when I would do these sorts of things, and I have nipped it in the bud to where I don't do it. I try not to argue very much. If something's going beyond 3 or 4 posts and I see somebody just keeps arguing, I either block them, or I tell them I'm not arguing if it's a friend of mine or whatever like that, or take it to DM and just talk with each other. Because the grandstanding thing is a fake self-importance sort of thing that is often trying to be done. But you can get rid of those pretty easily. So start the habits today. I hope you will take this video to heart and take this information to heart and do something with it, because we all can improve ourselves in every single situation, is what this has come down to. And definitely take my advice on going out for a walk, getting blood flow going to the gym. All that stuff is going to make your body honed, so that you are stronger, so that you're fitter. And those things are going to naturally change the chemical processes within you to where you become less of a gamma male in a lot of these ways, because you're going to have a body that demands work, that is a stronger physique. And so obviously you will not have the tendencies to be lower in the social order with those sorts of traits. And also, getting the blood flowing in general is just good for the brain. So if you're moving around a lot, your brain is going to have better activity. You're just going to have a better time. You're actually going to create more happiness in yourself, because your body's going to produce more serotonin. It's just got all sorts of benefits to moving around. So I hope that helps for everybody. If you have some questions or anything, you're welcome to contact me. I'm happy to help anybody. I help a lot of people regularly. I get messages, about just Christian living, or about just trying to do the right thing. I'm happy to try to give advice where I can. I'm not a perfect person. I'm not going to say that my advice is always correct or anything like that, or that I'm some great expert. But I do appreciate my viewers, and I definitely want to help you guys as much as I can. It's always a pay it forward thing over here. So thanks a lot for watching. Hit that like and subscribe button, and let's make a better internet together by ending gamma male tendencies.